The message hit my phone like a slap. Don't come to the cocktail party. My mother doesn't want you there. That was it. No explanation. No call. Just a line that cut deeper than it should have. Especially considering I was the one quietly paying for nearly everything that made their glittering life possible. What followed wasn't loud or messy at first. It was precise. And by the time the night ended, someone was going to realize how expensive disrespect can be. Before I tell you how this unfolded, do me a small favor. Tap follow, share where you're watching from in the comments, and stick with me. It helps my story reach people who need to hear it. I'm Ava Reynolds. I'm 31. I live in a high-rise condo at Seabrook Condominiums, overlooking Clearwater Bay, the kind of place people assume is funded by a trust or a tech exit. The truth is less glamorous. I work. I budget. I plan. And I married Lucas Reynolds, believing partnership meant mutual respect. Lucas and I had been married a little over 2 years. No kids. No shared business. Just shared appearances. His mother, Evelyn Reynolds, loved appearances more than anything. She curated rooms the way some people curate lives. Polished, selective, ruthless. From the moment she realized I wasn't impressed by titles or intimidated by social ladders, she labeled me a problem. The cocktail party was her event. Harborview Rooftop Lounge. Invite only. Photographers. Donors. People who spoke in low voices and wore watches that cost more than my first car. Lucas had told me weeks earlier how important it was. For my mother, he said. He also didn't mention that the venue deposit, the bar minimum, the floral design, and the live quartet were all quietly charged to an account under my name. That part mattered. The text came at 3:14 p.m. I was finishing a call with a client when my phone buzzed. I read it twice, then a third time slower, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less insulting. Lucas, I typed back. We need to talk. No response. I stared at the city below my balcony, boats moving like toys across the water. This wasn't the first time Evelyn had iced me out, but it was the first time Lucas had put it in writing. Public exclusion. Private funding. The math didn't work anymore. So I opened my laptop. Atlantic Crest Bank greeted me with familiar calm. I navigated to the accounts I managed, the ones Lucas called temporary bridges. The event sponsorship retainer. The recurring transfers labeled networking expenses. The lifestyle subscriptions Evelyn insisted were non-negotiable for their circle. I paused once, just long enough to breathe, then began canceling. Each confirmation email landed with a soft chime. One by one, the bridges disappeared. By 6 o'clock, my phone started buzzing again. Lucas. Hey, something weird just happened with the Harborview account. Lucas, did you change something? Lucas, Ava, call me. Now. I didn't. I changed into jeans, tied my hair back, and made pasta. Simple. Quiet. The kind of night that doesn't invite chaos. But chaos found me anyway. At 7:42 p.m., Maya Collins FaceTimed me from a car. You're not coming, she asked, eyebrows raised. I'm parked outside Harborview. There's a situation. What kind of situation? The kind where staff are arguing with your mother-in-law. The bar is refusing to open tabs, and the event manager keeps saying a sponsor pulled out last minute. I closed my eyes. Are people still going in? I asked. Maya snorted. Half the guest list just left. I thanked her and hung up. 10 minutes later, Lucas called again. I answered this time. What did you do? He demanded. I stayed home, I said evenly. No, the accounts. The lounge says the deposit bounced. My mother is livid. She didn't want me there, I replied. So I didn't attend. Seemed fair. Ava, this is humiliating. I laughed once, short and sharp. You texted your wife not to come to a party she paid for. Silence. You need to fix this, he said finally. I already did, I answered. I fixed my side. He hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. At 9:06 p.m., my doorbell rang. I didn't move. It rang again. Longer this time. Through the peephole, I saw Lucas, tie loosened, face flushed, phone in his hand. Behind him, the hallway lights reflected off mirrored walls, multiplying his panic. I opened the door halfway. You embarrassed us, he said without greeting. You embarrassed yourself, I replied. And you did it in writing. This wasn't about you. It was funded by me. He stepped forward. My mother just wanted one night. One night without me? I cut in, while my money covered the wine. His jaw tightened. You're being dramatic. That word, Evelyn's favorite. I opened the door fully and stepped aside. Come in. He hesitated, then entered, eyes darting around as if expecting witnesses. I didn't think it would go this far, he said, lowering his voice. Mom said you'd understand. I understand perfectly, I replied. She wanted control. You let her have it. That's not fair. Neither is using joint access to my accounts while excluding me publicly. His phone buzzed again. He ignored it. Ava, he said softer now. We can fix this. Just reinstate the transfers. I'll talk to her. I shook my head. No. What do you mean, no? I mean the money stops until we talk with a third party present. His face changed then. Not anger. Not confusion. Fear. You can't just. I can, I said. And I did. He stared at me like I was someone else entirely. I'll be back tomorrow, he said finally. We'll sort this out. As he left, I locked the door behind him and leaned against it, heart racing. Not with regret, but with clarity. My phone buzzed once more. An unfamiliar email address. Subject line, urgent, account review required. It was from Vargas Financial Integrity Services. I hadn't hired them yet. Someone else had triggered an audit. And whatever they were about to uncover was already moving faster than Lucas realized. By morning, my phone was silent in a way that felt unnatural, like the pause before something breaks. Lucas didn't call. Evelyn didn't text. Even the group chats tied to their social circle, normally buzzing with filtered photos and shallow congratulations, had gone quiet. That told me more than any message could. Damage had already spread. I spent the early hours doing something I hadn't done in months. Reviewing everything. Not emotionally, financially. I pulled up contracts, receipts, digital authorizations. The pattern was ugly in its elegance. Event retainers under my name. Temporary subscriptions that never ended. Vendor invoices routed through shell emails Lucas had once described as standard practice. It wasn't theft in the dramatic sense. It was expectation. And expectation, when left unchecked, turns predatory. At 9:17 a.m., my doorbell rang again. This time it wasn't Lucas. Denise Harper stood outside, clutching her tablet like a shield. She lived 2 floors down and worked in compliance for a global consulting firm. We'd exchanged polite hellos for years. That morning, her smile was tight. I hope I'm not overstepping, she said, stepping inside when I waved her in. But I think you should know what people are saying. About me? I asked. About you, Lucas, and his mother. Mostly about money. She pulled up her tablet and turned it toward me. A private forum. Invitation only. Clearwater Yacht Society members. Someone had posted screenshots from the Harborview disaster. Staff refusing service. Guests leaving early. Evelyn arguing with the manager while holding her phone like a weapon. And then the comments. Who sponsors an event they don't attend? Thought Lucas's wife was loaded. Guess not. Embarrassing. Evelyn always exaggerates their success. Denise scrolled. This is just the surface. Vendors talk. Account managers talk. And when payments bounce, audits happen. I nodded slowly. That explains the email. Her eyes sharpened. You didn't initiate it? No. She exhaled. Then someone panicked. After she left, I forwarded the email to Jonathan Pierce. Jonathan had been my attorney since before I married Lucas. Quiet, precise, allergic to drama. He called me within minutes. Ava, he said, I need you to listen carefully. Vargas Financial Integrity doesn't audit casually. Someone either triggered a compliance flag or attempted to reroute funds in a way that violated internal controls. Lucas? I asked. Or someone acting with his credentials? Jonathan replied. Either way, this is no longer just marital tension. It's exposure. I sat down. What do I do? You do nothing impulsive, he said, and you don't reinstate a single dollar. I'll contact Vargas and request a formal scope review with your consent. I gave it. By noon, the first crack showed. Lucas appeared in my garage as I returned from the grocery store, pacing near my parking spot like he'd been waiting. His suit jacket was gone. His voice wasn't steady. You blindsided me, he said the moment I stepped out of the car. You texted me not to come, I replied. We're even. This is bigger than that, he snapped. Vendors are calling. My mother's furious. The Yacht Society froze our account. I echoed. He flinched. You don't understand, he continued, running a hand through his hair. If this goes public. It already is, I said quietly. And I'm done pretending I didn't notice. He stepped closer. Ava, please. We can fix this privately. By restoring the money? I asked. By not escalating. I smiled without humor. You escalated when you let your mother erase me. That afternoon, Elena Vargas called me herself. Ava Reynolds, she asked. Her voice was calm, professional. I want to be transparent. An internal inconsistency triggered our review. Your accounts are not under suspicion, but transactions authorized through secondary access are. Secondary access, I repeated. Yes, she said. We've temporarily suspended outgoing payments pending verification. How long will this take? That depends, she replied. On honesty. At 6:30 p.m., Lucas texted me a single sentence. Mom wants to talk. I didn't respond. Instead, I received an email from Evelyn herself an hour later. No greeting. No apology. Just a calendar invite labeled discussion. I declined it. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Ava, Evelyn said when I answered. You've caused unnecessary disruption. You told my husband to exclude me from an event I paid for, I said. We're past disruption. This is about respect, she snapped. And loyalty. Then start with honesty. A pause. Then colder. You're making a mistake. Maybe, I said. But it's mine. She hung up. That night, Lucas didn't come home. At midnight, Jonathan emailed me a summary from Vargas. Preliminary findings indicate misrepresentation of expense purpose, unauthorized vendor continuity, and attempted reclassification of personal expenditures. I read it twice, then a third time. Someone had tried to move money after I canceled it, and they hadn't been careful. The next morning, Elena Vargas requested an in-person meeting. Bring everything, she said, and Ava, don't warn anyone. I looked out over Clearwater Bay as the sun climbed, light spilling across the water like exposure. Whatever Lucas and Evelyn thought they were protecting, it was already unraveling. And the truth, once it starts moving, doesn't stop at apologies. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was afraid, but because my mind kept replaying details I'd ignored for too long. Small inconsistencies, Lucas brushing off invoices, Evelyn insisting certain payments were temporary optics. All of it had felt manageable when it stayed abstract. Now it had weight. By the time I arrived at Vargas Financial Integrity Services the next morning, the air felt different, quieter, purposeful. Elena Vargas met me in the lobby herself, dressed simply, tablet in hand, eyes sharp without being unkind. Thank you for coming in person, she said. This will go faster if we're direct. Her office overlooked Clearwater Bay from the opposite side of the city. Less glass, more concrete. The kind of place where decisions were made without ceremony. She spread documents across the table. Vendor contracts, digital approvals, timestamps. This isn't about lifestyle spending, Elena said. It's about narrative. She tapped one invoice. This floral retainer was submitted as a professional networking expense. The venue listed was Harborview, but the approving notes reference a private social event. Another page. This monthly transfer was labeled business development, but the recipient account belongs to a social membership group with no commercial function. I felt my jaw tighten. So it was misrepresented. Consistently, she said. And there's more. She slid over a final document, an access log. 2 weeks before the cocktail party, someone had attempted to add a third-party authorization to my account. The request failed because I'd updated my security protocols months earlier. Was that Lucas? I asked. Elena didn't answer directly. It came from a device registered to your shared residence. That was enough. What happens next? I asked. We finalize the audit, she said, and we notify any affected institutions. I nodded. Do it. By the time I returned home, my phone was lighting up again. Lucas called. I ignored it. Evelyn texted. I deleted it. Then an unfamiliar number appeared. This is Natalie Brooks, the voice said when I answered. I represent Lucas Reynolds. We need to discuss resolution. Through my attorney, I replied. She sighed. Ava, this doesn't need to become adversarial. It already is, I said and hung up. That evening, Denise knocked on my door again, this time with wine. They're unraveling, she said. Once we Saturday, the Yacht Society Board is reviewing memberships tied to inconsistent funding. And someone leaked that Harborview blacklisted Evelyn's events. I laughed softly. She'll hate that. Denise hesitated. There's more. Lucas tried to reassure people by saying you were unstable, overworked, that you'd overreacted. Something cold settled in my chest. He said that. I asked. She nodded. Not publicly, but enough that it spread. I thanked her and closed the door. That night, I emailed Jonathan. They're trying to control the narrative. What are my options? His reply came quickly. We document. Then we confront, formally. 2 days later, a mediation notice arrived. Neutral location. Coleman Resolution Center. Mandatory attendance, if they wanted to avoid further institutional review. Lucas confirmed within the hour. Evelyn didn't respond, but her silence spoke louder than words. The day of the mediation, I arrived early. Jonathan beside me, Maya waiting in the lobby as support. When Lucas entered, he looked smaller somehow. Tired. Natalie Brooks followed, composed but tense. Evelyn arrived last. She didn't look at me. The mediator, Richard Coleman, laid out the rules. Calm, respectful, transparent. Jonathan spoke first. He presented the audit findings without commentary. Just facts. Misclassified expenses. Attempted access changes. Vendor reliance on my accounts. Natalie tried to interrupt. Coleman stopped her. Then Elena Vargas spoke. Briefly, devastatingly. She explained the compliance implications in plain terms. When it was Evelyn's turn, she finally looked at me. You've always resented our family, she said. You wanted control. I met her gaze. I wanted honesty. Lucas cleared his throat. Ava, I didn't think it would go this far. That's the problem, I replied. You never think until someone stops paying. Silence fell heavy over the room. Coleman leaned forward. Based on what I've heard, continued contact without boundaries would be unwise. Natalie whispered urgently to Lucas. Finally, Lucas spoke. What do you want? I took a breath. Distance. Financial separation. And a written agreement that no one speaks on my behalf again. Evelyn scoffed. You're overreacting. Coleman looked at her coolly. Mrs. Reynolds, this isn't your decision. Lucas signed. Evelyn didn't. That was when Jonathan slid one final document across the table, a notice of formal audit escalation. Evelyn's face drained of color. The meeting ended without resolution. But as I walked out into the afternoon light, I knew something had shifted. They'd tried exclusion, then pressure, then quiet character damage. None of it worked. And whatever they'd been hiding behind charm and appearances was about to surface, whether they liked it or not. Stay with me, because the next move isn't theirs. The fallout didn't explode all at once. It crept in quietly, through emails that stopped arriving, calls that went unanswered, and invitations that were suddenly postponed indefinitely. Evelyn had built her influence on access. Access to rooms, to people, to money she never technically owned. Once the access narrowed, her power thinned fast. 2 days after the mediation, Jonathan called me early. They've escalated, he said. Not legally, socially. I already knew what that meant. By mid-morning, screenshots started circulating. Private messages, carefully worded concern posts, vague statements about my emotional state and recent instability. Nothing defamatory on its own. Together, they painted a picture Evelyn wanted others to believe. Lucas didn't defend me. That hurt more than I expected. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't see, was that every attempt to reshape the story was being watched. Elena Vargas forwarded me an internal memo that afternoon. 2 institutions had flagged Evelyn's name for enhanced review due to patterned financial misrepresentation. Another vendor had submitted a statement, unsolicited, detailing pressure they'd received to continue services despite canceled payments. Pressure leaves traces. By Friday, Lucas finally came home. He stood in the doorway like a guest, not a husband. "We need to talk," he said. "I know," I replied. "Sit." He didn't. "They're freezing things," he said. "Accounts. Invitations. People won't return my calls." I waited. "My mother says you're doing this on purpose." I met his eyes. "I'm protecting myself." "You didn't have to destroy everything." I stood then, slow and steady. "I didn't destroy it. I stopped holding it up." His shoulders slumped. "She says you planned this, that you wanted leverage." "I wanted respect." He laughed weakly. "You married into the wrong family for that." Something in me went still. "Lucas," I said quietly, "you let your mother decide where I belong. You let her use my money. And when it collapsed, you let her rewrite me into the villain." He didn't argue. That was my answer. I handed him an envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "Separation terms," I said. "Temporary. Clean. No money. No statements. No access." He stared at it like it might bite. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious." He left that night with a suitcase and a silence that felt final. The next week moved fast. Harborview formally terminated Evelyn's event privileges. The Clearwater Yacht Society suspended memberships, pending review. A donor group quietly removed her from a committee she'd chaired for 6 years. No announcements, just absence. The sharpest cut came when Lorraine Reynolds, Evelyn's sister, called me. "I didn't know," she said flatly, "about the money, about the way she spoke about you." "I believe you," I replied. "She's furious," Lorraine continued. "Not at you, at everyone else, because they're choosing distance." I almost smiled. Distance was contagious. Then came the email from Natalie Brooks. "My client wishes to settle remaining matters privately. No further statements. Mutual discretion." Jonathan read it once and nodded. "They're scared." "Of what?" I asked. "Of what happens if this continues without you shielding them?" That night, I sat alone on my balcony, city lights flickering below. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt clear. For the first time since I married Lucas, nothing was being taken from me. Quietly, politely, relentlessly. I wasn't excluded anymore. I was untouchable, and the next move would decide whether this ended clean or left scars they couldn't hide. The end didn't come with shouting or slammed doors. It came with paperwork, silence, and consequences that arrived right on schedule. Jonathan finalized the separation agreement within days. Clean lines, no shared accounts, no lingering authorizations. Lucas signed without negotiation. He didn't look at me when he did it. I think some part of him knew that whatever version of us existed before the cocktail party had already ended the moment he chose exclusion over honesty. Evelyn never contacted me again. Not directly, but I heard about her. Everyone did. The audit findings moved quietly through the circles she once ruled. No headlines, no dramatic confrontations, just a slow, undeniable withdrawal of trust. Invitations stopped. Committees reshuffled. Vendors required prepayment. The kind of things people notice only after they've already lost their footing. One afternoon, Denise knocked on my door with a familiar look, half concern, half disbelief. She tried to host another event, she said. Different venue, smaller scale, cash this time, and... I asked. Cancelled. No staff. I nodded. That made sense. Lucas moved into a short-term rental across town. We spoke once more, briefly, to finalize logistics. No accusations. No apologies that mattered. Just the quiet understanding that some choices don't explode. They erode. I didn't think she'd turn on me, he said at one point, staring at the floor. She didn't, I replied. She just stopped needing you. That was the last personal conversation we had. The strangest part was how quickly my life filled in after everything fell away. Without the constant drain, emotional, financial, psychological, I slept better. I focused. I noticed things again. Mornings felt lighter. Decisions felt mine. I redirected the accounts I'd once used to fund appearances into places that actually mattered. Savings, investments, a quiet contribution to a women's financial safety group I'd followed for years, but never had the energy to support properly. I wasn't rebuilding. I was reclaiming. Months later, I ran into Lorraine at a charity fundraiser. She hugged me gently. You did the right thing, she said, even if it didn't feel right at the time. I know, I answered, and I meant it. Lucas sent one final message on my birthday. No guilt. No requests, just a simple line wishing me well and acknowledging that he had a lot to learn. I didn't reply, not out of anger, but because closure doesn't always require a response. Sometimes it just requires boundaries. I still live at Seabrook Condominiums. Same view, same balcony, different piece. The city hasn't changed, but my place in it has. I no longer shrink to make space for people who mistake access for entitlement. If there's one thing this experience taught me, it's this. Exclusion reveals more than inclusion ever will. And when someone tells you where you don't belong, believe them, listen carefully, and decide what you'll no longer pay for. If this story resonated with you, take a second to support the channel, share where you're watching from, and leave a comment. Your engagement helps stories like this reach people who need them. And if you've ever been quietly funding someone else's comfort at the cost of your own dignity, remember this. You're allowed to stop.